Jake had been a seasoned pizza delivery driver for years, and he thought he had seen and heard it all. However, one fateful night, an order with an address that seemed ripped from a horror movie script left him with more questions than answers. It was a typical Friday evening, and the pizzeria where Jake worked was buzzing with activity. Orders were coming in fast, but Jake was used to the hustle. He had the uncanny ability to navigate the chaotic kitchen and keep track of multiple orders, making him a favorite among the staff and customers. As he was gathering the latest round of orders, a ticket caught his eye. The address was unusual, to say the least. It led to a remote cabin deep in the woods, miles away from the usual delivery routes. The instructions were equally strange, mentioning a long, winding dirt road and a cabin with a red door. Jake shrugged it off as just another quirky customer, but a subtle unease settled in the pit of his stomach. Determined to provide exceptional service, Jake loaded the pizza into the delivery bag and set out on the long drive. The winding dirt road seemed to stretch on forever, and the dark forest on either side of the path gave him an eerie feeling. He had no cell phone signal, and it felt like he had entered a different world, far removed from civilization. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he arrived at the cabin. It looked like something out of a horror movie, with its old, weathered boards and the moon casting long shadows over the surrounding trees. The cabin had a red door, just as the instructions stated. Jake hesitated for a moment, glancing around the desolate landscape. It was an unsettling feeling, but he reminded himself it was just a delivery, and he needed to earn his tip. He approached the door and knocked, the sound echoing through the silence of the woods. The door creaked open slowly, and Jake was met with the sight of a dimly lit room. The inside of the cabin was sparsely furnished, with old, faded photographs hanging on the walls. An eerie silence filled the space, and Jake felt a sense of foreboding. He called out, "Pizza delivery!" but received no response. The air was still, and he could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. As he entered further into the cabin, he saw an open newspaper on the table, its pages yellowed with age, as though it had been left untouched for years. Jake's unease grew, and he considered leaving the pizza and making a quick exit. But then he heard a shuffling noise from deeper within the cabin. He hesitated, his heart pounding, and decided to follow the sound. As he ventured further into the cabin, the hallway narrowed, and the dim light cast eerie, elongated shadows. The shuffling grew louder, and he saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway, partially obscured by the darkness. "Hello?" Jake called out cautiously, trying to discern the person's features. The figure didn't respond, only seemed to beckon him closer. With a mixture of fear and curiosity, Jake approached, finally able to see the person's face. It was a man in a tattered suit, his hair disheveled, and his eyes filled with distress. The man handed Jake a wad of crumpled bills, whispering, "Take the money and leave quickly, but never come back." Jake's confusion deepened. The man's words were cryptic, and his appearance left Jake uneasy. The cabin, the man, and the entire situation were unlike anything he had encountered in his years of delivering pizzas. Taking the money, Jake decided not to press further questions and quickly exited the cabin, his heart racing as he made his way back to the pizzeria. He counted the money once he was safely inside his car and realized it was an astronomical tip of $500, far beyond what anyone would give for a pizza delivery. The entire experience left him with more questions than answers. Who was the mysterious man? What had happened in that cabin? And why had he been instructed never to return? As he drove back to the pizzeria, the remote cabin faded into the distance, leaving Jake with an eerie feeling that he couldn't shake. He couldn't help but wonder about the tip he had received that night, and the strange encounter that had left him with a mystery he knew he might never solve. In the small town of Crestwood, nestled in the heart of a dense forest, a chilling story unfolded one stormy night that would haunt the town for generations. The townsfolk had always whispered about the old, decaying mansion deep in the woods, but no one dared to go near it. It was a place shrouded in legend, believed to be cursed by the very spirits that resided within its twisted walls. The house was known for no one living there for years. Jason, a young and fearless pizza delivery driver. He had heard the ominous tales about abandoned mansion, but his adventurous spirit and skepticism led him to believe they were just urban legends. Little did he know that one fateful night would forever change his perception. It was a stormy evening when Jason received an order for a delivery that sent shivers down his spine. The address led him to the notorious mansion on the outskirts of town. The instructions on the order were chilling, reading, "Leave the pizza on the doorstep, knock 3 times, and wait." The rain was pouring relentlessly, and the wind howled like an otherworldly lament as Jason parked his car in front of the mansion. The mansion's facade was a decaying relic, with overgrown ivy crawling up its walls and its windows like dark, hollow eyes. Eerie shadows danced around the entrance, cast by the dim moonlight. Jason followed the instructions, placing the pizza on the doorstep and delivering 3 deliberate knocks. He stepped back, the sound of his own breathing seemingly amplified in the silence. The minutes dragged on, and Jason felt like an unwelcome guest in a house of malevolence. Just as he was about to give up and leave, the colossal front door creaked open slowly, revealing a dark and ominous interior. Jason hesitated but felt a strange compulsion to enter. The door slammed shut behind him, sealing him inside with a bone-chilling thud. The mansion's interior was like something out of a nightmare. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the walls were adorned with tattered, grotesque paintings that seemed to leer at him. The flickering candlelight cast eerie, shifting shadows, giving life to the paintings, and making the place feel like a ghastly, haunted art gallery. "Hello?" Jason called out, but his voice only echoed through the mansion, met with no response. As he ventured deeper, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, and the echoing whispers grew louder. The very walls seemed to speak of suffering and torment. Jason stumbled into a room that appeared to be a dining area. An ancient, rotting table was set with silverware and fine china, an eerie tableau of a forgotten dinner party from long ago. The room was dimly lit by a flickering chandelier, its unsettling glow casting eerie shadows on the cracked, decaying wallpaper. The grotesque whispers intensified, and the paintings on the walls seemed to come to life, their sinister eyes following Jason's every movement. He felt trapped in a waking nightmare, with no idea of how he had ended up in this mansion. Just as he reached the point of sheer terror, a ghastly figure appeared at the end of the dining room. It was a spectral, disfigured presence, its twisted form shrouded in tattered rags. The hollow eyes locked onto Jason, and it extended a skeletal hand towards him. "I've been waiting for you, Jason." The apparition hissed, its voice echoed in despair. Jason recoiled, attempting to escape, but the room seemed to stretch endlessly, with no exit in sight. The apparition moved closer, its outstretched hand reaching for him, and Jason could feel an icy grip tightening around his heart. As the ghastly hand closed in on him, the room seemed to disintegrate, and Jason was suddenly jolted awake in the driver's seat of his car. He was still parked in front of the mansion, but it was now bathed in the eerie light of dawn, and the front door was securely closed. Shaken to his core, Jason couldn't fathom what had just occurred. He sped away from the cursed mansion, his heart pounding in his chest, his skepticism replaced by the haunting reality of the night's events. The memory of that night would forever haunt him, and the story of his terrifying encounter would echo through the town of Crestwood, reinforcing the mansion's sinister reputation for generations to come. Derek had always been the adventurous type, and being a pizza delivery driver seemed like a good fit for him. However, one stormy night, his adventurous spirit was put to the test. He was tasked with delivering a pizza to an address that had sent shivers down his spine the moment he read it on the order slip. He knew the whereabouts of where this house sat, which was on the outskirts of town in a not-so-nice area. The address led him to an old, abandoned-looking mansion that was dark and eerie-looking. Derek had a feeling that made him second-guess if he should go up to the door or turn around and drive back to the store. He knew he should make the delivery because he was already there. He ended up approaching the door, the rain poured down like a relentless waterfall, and the wind howled. The mansion loomed before him, casting eerie shadows that danced in the dim light of the street lamp. He hesitated for a moment, considering returning to the safety of his car, but he was determined to complete the delivery and earn his tip. Derek knocked on the massive, wooden door, and it slowly creaked open, revealing an eerie darkness within. A chill ran down his spine as he stepped across the threshold, his footsteps echoing through the cavernous entryway. "Pizza delivery!" he called out, his voice quivering with uncertainty. The only response was the sound of rain drumming on the roof. The house was dimly lit, with ancient, dusty furniture scattered about, covered in tattered sheets. Derek cautiously made his way further into the mansion, feeling a sense of foreboding pressing on him. "Hello?" he called out once more, but again, there was no response. As he contemplated leaving the pizza on a nearby table and making a hasty exit, the lights in the room flickered, and a sudden gust of wind blew through the mansion, extinguishing the lone candle that had been providing some illumination. Derek's heart raced as he fumbled for his phone, which provided a weak, eerie glow in the darkness. Then, from somewhere deep within the mansion, a voice echoed, "I've been waiting for you, Derek." The voice was chilling, echoing with an otherworldly resonance. Derek's breath caught in his throat, and he felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. "Who's there?" Derek stammered, his voice trembling. He strained his eyes in the darkness, trying to make out any figure or source of the voice. The voice continued, taunting and malevolent. "You should never have come here, Derek. You're in my domain now, and there's no escape." Derek's fear was overwhelming, and he dropped the pizza, the box falling open, spilling its contents on the floor. He turned and sprinted back toward the front door, desperate to escape. But as he reached the door, it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as he tried to turn the handle, but it was as if it had been locked from the other side. The ghostly voice continued to mock him, its presence growing stronger, as if it were closing in from all directions. Derek's heart raced, and his palms were sweaty as he searched for another way out. The mansion seemed to have transformed into a labyrinth of darkness and shadows. Strange, ghostly whispers filled the air, like a chorus of tormented souls. The voices seemed to be coming from all around him, and he couldn't tell if they were real or a product of his terrified imagination. Derek felt as though he were being watched by countless invisible eyes. His mind raced, desperately searching for an escape route. He tried to push open a nearby window, but it was stuck shut. The voices grew louder, more insistent, and Derek couldn't take it any longer. He collapsed to the ground, covering his ears, trying to block out the haunting voices that surrounded him. And then, as suddenly as it had all begun, the mansion fell silent. The lights flickered back to life, and the door swung open, allowing Derek to escape. He scrambled to his feet, covered in cold sweat, and fled from the mansion, not looking back even once. Derek stumbled back to his car, his hands still shaking, and sped away from the accursed place. The memory of that fateful delivery would haunt him for the rest of his days, a terrifying tale he would share with anyone who would listen, though they could never fully grasp the bone-chilling horror he had experienced that stormy night.